On the night of our anniversary, my husband looked me in the eye and said, "Barbara told me everything." Froze. Barbara is my stepmother. And apparently she told him I was cheating with my ex while I was pregnant, which, by the way, I wasn't. That was the moment I knew she wasn't just toxic. She was dangerous. And if she wanted to ruin my marriage, then fine. I'd ruin her life first. I never imagined my life would turn out the way it did. Growing up, I always dreamed of a loving, stable family, the kind where everyone feels safe and happy. And for a while I thought I had exactly that. My name is Emily, and I met Jake in college. From the moment we met, I knew he was different. Kind, patient, with a smile that could brighten even my darkest days. We started dating, and after 3 years, we got married in a small ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but it was ours. It was a fairy tale, or at least the version I wanted to believe in. Jake and I built a cozy home in a quiet neighborhood. On weekends we'd binge-watch our favorite shows, cook together and dream about the future. Life was simple but full of love. We didn't have children yet, but we talked about it often, imagining what kind of parents we'd be. I trusted him completely, and I believed he trusted me too. But life, as it often does, threw us a curveball, one that I never saw coming. The first sign of trouble came quietly, almost innocently, when my dad remarried. His new wife, Barbara, was nothing like the mother I once knew. She was charming on the surface, polite, smiling, always polite to my face. But there was a coldness in her eyes that sent chills down my spine. I tried to be welcoming. I wanted to get along for the sake of my family. But Barbara didn't make it easy. From the start, she acted like she owned everything. My dad, the house, even Jake. At family dinners, I noticed the way she would throw subtle digs my way, pretending they were jokes. Comments about how Jake was too good for me, or how someone needed to teach me how to keep a man happy. At first I brushed it off, telling myself she was just insecure or jealous. But as months passed, her behavior grew more intense. She'd call Jake behind my back, whispering lies about me. Stories I never imagined she'd make up. I could see the change in Jake too. The way he hesitated when I spoke about work. The way he checked his phone nervously when she was around. I wanted to confront her, to tell my dad what Barbara was doing, but I was scared. Family drama is messy, and I didn't want to be the one who tore everyone apart. So I stayed silent, hoping things would get better. But they didn't. Instead, Barbara started to manipulate everyone around her. Friends, co-workers, even neighbors, spinning a web of mistrust and doubt. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck. I felt trapped in my own home, surrounded by people who no longer seemed to believe me. The woman who should have been my stepmother was becoming my greatest enemy. And then came the night of our anniversary, when everything exploded. That's when I realized this wasn't just about jealousy or misunderstanding. This was war. It all started with small things, the kind of things you might overlook if you told yourself they didn't matter. But when those small things keep piling up day after day, you start to feel like you're living in a house built on shifting sand. That's exactly how it was with Barbara. What began as subtle digs soon became sharp barbs. And those barbs didn't just stay between me and her. They wormed their way into every corner of my life, poisoning everything I loved. One afternoon I was at work when Jake called me. His voice was quieter than usual, hesitant. "Emily," he said, "Barbara called. She said some things about you." I felt my heart stop. "What things?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. But he wouldn't say. Just that she had been telling him I was flirting with my male co-workers, that I was too friendly with someone at the office. First I laughed it off. Barbara was always dramatic. But then Jake started to act differently. He asked questions I hadn't heard before. Innocent, casual questions that felt like tests. "Did you go out with anyone after work last night? Who was that guy you were texting?" He wasn't accusing me outright, but the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was growing fast. Barbara had found a way to twist simple facts. A work dinner with a team of colleagues became a secret date. A friendly text from an old friend became evidence. She was a master at manipulation, feeding Jake just enough misinformation to make him question everything, but never enough to seem outright wrong. One night, I came home to find Barbara sitting on our couch. She greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I just wanted to talk," she said sweetly. But the conversation quickly turned cold. She told me, with what she must have thought was a motherly tone, that Jake deserved better than me, that I wasn't good enough to keep his attention. Her words weren't just cruel, they were calculated to hurt. I wanted to confront her, to yell, to tell her to get out of my house. But I didn't, because deep down I was terrified. What if she was right? What if Jake was starting to believe her? And then came the phone calls at all hours. Jake would pick up, talk softly, then hang up looking confused and upset. I started noticing her car outside our house late at night. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses of her leaving after dark, but no one would tell me where she'd been or what she'd been doing. One afternoon I found a message on Jake's phone. It was from Barbara, a photo of me laughing with my ex-boyfriend from 10 years ago. The caption read, "Looks like Emily's moved on already." My blood ran cold. That photo was innocent. A snapshot from a reunion with old friends, nothing more. But Barbara had twisted it into something poisonous. Something meant to destroy the trust between Jake and me. I confronted Jake with the message. He looked torn. "I don't know what to think," he admitted. "Barbara said she wanted to protect me." Protect him. From me. It was surreal. The woman who should have been part of our family was actively working to tear it apart. Then, the rumors started to spread beyond our home. I heard whispers at work, from colleagues who suddenly acted cold. A neighbor told me Barbara had been saying I was unfaithful and dishonest. I felt isolated, like I was fighting a war no one knew about. One evening, Jake and I had a fight, the first real fight we'd ever had. He accused me of hiding things, of being secretive. I accused Barbara of poisoning everything. Neither of us won. The damage was done. I begged Jake to see the truth, but Barbara was always one step ahead. She knew just what to say, how to act innocent, and how to make him doubt me without pushing too hard. It was like she was pulling the strings behind the scenes, and I was powerless to stop it. My world began to crumble. I stopped trusting my own husband, started questioning my worth, and wondered if I was losing him forever. The woman who was supposed to be family had become my greatest enemy, and I was running out of options. One night I came home late after work, exhausted and drained. I found Barbara waiting in the living room, her smile sharper than ever. She held out a phone with a video on the screen. It was grainy and dark, but I recognized myself. Jake and I, in what looked like a very private moment. Except it wasn't. Barbara had secretly recorded us. And she had sent the video to people I didn't even know. I confronted Jake again. This time he didn't deny receiving the video. He was hurt and confused, caught between the woman who had raised him and the woman he loved. I felt like my marriage was slipping through my fingers. But that night something inside me snapped. I realized I couldn't sit back and let Barbara destroy everything. If she wanted a war, I'd give her one. Not with anger or shouting, but with quiet, determined strength. I started collecting evidence. Texts, photos, recordings, anything that showed her true colors. I knew exposing her was the only way to save my marriage and myself. The night Barbara crossed the line was the night I realized this wasn't just some petty family drama anymore. It was war, the kind that could destroy everything I had built with Jake. Up until that moment, I had hoped she'd just be a toxic presence, a thorn in my side that I could learn to live with or maybe even ignore. But that night, she shattered every illusion. It started with a knock on the door. Late, almost midnight. I wasn't expecting anyone. Jake was already asleep, or so I thought. I opened the door, and there she was. Barbara, standing there with that same fake smile, holding a box. The kind of smile that hides poison. "I thought you'd like this," she said softly, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I frowned, confused and wary. "Barbara, what are you doing here so late?" She didn't answer. Instead, she set the box down on the kitchen table and opened it. Inside were letters. Personal letters Jake had written to me years ago, during the early days of our relationship. Love letters, the kind that make your heart flutter even years later. But then, mixed among them, were photos of me. Some candid shots taken without my knowledge, some from family events, all clearly meant to be private. "I found these," she said, "and thought you should know how careless you've been. How many secrets are you hiding?" I took a step back, my heart pounding. "These are private, Barbara. Why do you have them?" She shrugged, as if that explained everything. "Doesn't matter. What matters is Jake knows now. And maybe it's time you faced the truth. You're not as perfect as you think." I felt anger rise like a storm inside me. "You're lying. You're trying to tear us apart." Her smile twisted into something cruel. "Maybe it's time you learned what family really means." That was the moment I realized she wasn't just meddling. She was trying to rewrite our entire history, to poison Jake's memories and turn him against me. But Barbara wasn't done. The real betrayal came moments later, when she dropped a bomb I never saw coming. "I called Jake," she said, eyes gleaming. "I told him you've been hiding something else all along." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "That you've been seeing someone else." Froze. That was the last thing Jake needed to hear. A lie so vicious it could destroy us both. I wanted to scream, to deny it, to run away from the nightmare she was spinning. But she was right about one thing. She had called Jake, and those poisonous words were already taking root. The next morning was the hardest day of my life. Jake barely looked at me. His eyes were clouded with doubt and hurt. "Emily," he said quietly, "I don't know what to believe anymore." And I realized then, Barbara had won the first round. But I wasn't ready to lose. Not yet. I decided to fight back, but not with anger or threats. I needed proof. I started recording every conversation, saving every message, documenting every interaction with Barbara. I wasn't just protecting myself, I was protecting my marriage, my family, and my sanity. One afternoon I caught Barbara on the phone, boasting to a friend about how she'd broken Jake's trust. Her voice was cold and triumphant. I saved the recording, feeling a surge of hope. The turning point came when I showed Jake the evidence. The texts, the calls, the lies. Everything laid bare. At first, he was skeptical, confused by the betrayal he'd been blind to. But as I played the recordings, showed him the messages, the doubt began to fade. We talked for hours. For the first time in weeks. I told him everything. How Barbara had manipulated him, how she'd invaded our lives. And for the first time he saw her for who she really was. That night, Jake confronted Barbara. It wasn't easy. She denied everything, twisted words, and tried to turn it back on me. But Jake wasn't fooled anymore. He told her, in no uncertain terms, that her behavior was unacceptable and that she was no longer welcome in our home. It was the moment I realized we had survived the worst of the storm. But the damage Barbara caused would take time to heal. Trust once broken isn't easily mended. Yet standing together, Jake and I began to rebuild. We promised each other honesty, openness, and above all, loyalty. Looking back, I know Barbara crossed a line that night. And in doing so, she exposed herself. She showed me just how far someone could go when driven by jealousy and spite. But she also showed me the strength I didn't know I had. I learned that family isn't just about blood or titles. It's about trust, respect, and love. And sometimes, protecting that means fighting for it with everything you've got. Looking back now, I never imagined I'd find myself in the middle of such a mess. A battlefield where hearts were broken and trust was shattered. But if there's one thing this whole nightmare taught me, it's that sometimes to protect what you love, you have to be willing to fight harder than you ever thought possible. I didn't just defend my marriage. I destroyed the poison that Barbara brought into our lives, and in doing so, I found something unexpected. My own strength. Destroying her wasn't about revenge or hatred. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my family. I learned that no matter how charming or convincing someone might seem on the outside, their true intentions always come to light. Barbara's lies and manipulation were a mask, and once it fell, everyone could see who she really was. That realization gave me peace, even if the scars she left behind took longer to heal. What hurt the most wasn't the battles we fought or the chaos she stirred up. It was how close I came to losing myself in the process, losing sight of who I am, what I deserve, and what love really means. But through the struggle, I remembered that love isn't just about romantic moments or happy memories. It's about resilience, forgiveness, and choosing to move forward even when the past tries to drag you down. I learned that protecting your family sometimes means standing firm against those who want to tear it apart. But it also means knowing when to let go of anger, to forgive yourself, and to rebuild with hope. Jake and I came out stronger because we faced the darkness together. We didn't run from it or pretend it didn't exist. Instead, we held on tight to what mattered most, each other. Most of all, I learned that family is a choice. It's not just about blood ties or shared history. It's about loyalty, trust, and fighting for the people who matter most in your life. Barbara crossed a line she never should have, and in the end, it wasn't me who was destroyed, it was her. So, if there's one message I want to leave you with, it's this. Never underestimate your own power. No one can break you unless you let them. Stand up, protect your heart, and remember that sometimes, the hardest battles lead to the strongest victories. Because at the end of the day, the people who truly love you will always be the ones worth fighting for. And as I look ahead, I know this chapter has closed, but the story of us is just beginning. Fan 5. If you've ever faced someone trying to tear your family apart, or struggled to protect the people you love, I want you to know you're not alone. Life throws us all challenges, but sharing our stories, the good, the bad, and the messy, helps us heal and grow stronger together. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like, comment, and share your own experiences below. I'd love to hear how you've overcome tough times in your family, or what you've learned about trust and resilience. And if you want to join me on this journey of real-life stories about love, betrayal, and hope, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because here, we're more than just viewers. We're a community supporting each other through life's twists and turns. Thank you for being here and for letting me share my story with you. Let's keep the conversation going. Together we can turn pain into strength and heartbreak into healing.